By now, you're probably aware of the problems the city of Flint, Michigan is having with lead, making the water supply not only unusable, but downright dangerous. How did that happen? What's being done? And most importantly, could it happen here? And then how do you protect yourself and your family? Here with what you need to know is Shari. Oh, you and I have been talking about this a little bit here during the commercial. How did this happen?
Well, in Flint, for example, it began with a series of water pipes and service lines and soldering on those pipes that predated the laws that are about 30 years old that prohibited the use of lead. Then you add to that the city's decision to switch to a less expensive but more corrosive water source without taking the precautions of adding anti-corrosives, and so it corroded the pipes and the lead leached in. You add to that a system of federal, state, and local laws that are outdated and contain a zillion dangerous loopholes, and you add to that, and here's the worst part, Holly, a series of authorities who decided not to tell the public, so no one knew. And the end result was thousands of kids under the age of 6, which is, we know, more susceptible to neurological toxins, who have been exposed to excessively high levels of lead with issues that may not show up for years. But here's the thing, there are hundreds of utilities in this country servicing millions of people that have lead levels that exceed the recommendations, but people don't know it.
In Michigan's case, it seems like for weeks we've been watching people kind of shuffle the blame back and forth, but overall, the big picture here, what's being done?
Well, here's the thing. The federal laws set the maximum allowable limits of lead, but they leave it to the states to enforce, and the EPA has known for over a decade that system that they have of monitoring the states just doesn't work. So, for example, testing, okay? When you test the water, a local utility, the testing is done by average citizens like you and I. They only do it every 1 to 3 years, which is not enough. And people doing this in their own homes, taking these samples, it's not a uniform way of collecting the samples. Also, it doesn't even hit anyone's radar screen unless 10% of those samples exceed 15 parts per billion. The Center for Disease Control is already telling us that the amount of lead that should be allowed in our system keeps going down and down and down because we know that even little bits can cause serious problems.
So on a local level and maybe even an individual level, what can we do?
Well, here's the thing. The number one thing is to test your home, particularly if you're in an older home that predates the 1986 law for the pipes, and the law for faucets is actually only a few years old. So test your own water, hire an EPA certified tester, have your kids screened. You can also learn a little bit about your water source. So here in Palm Beach County, for example, you can go online and read the EPA report. And in fact, there are traces of lead in our water here from exactly these same types of sources. There are other precautions you can take in addition to that. For example, flush your water out before when you turn on the faucet, let it run for a little bit before you use it. And for schools in particular, there actually are no federal laws requiring that schools or daycare centers test their water. So if your kid's in an older school that doesn't test, send them to school with bottled water. I mean, just last week they shut down 30 schools in Newark, and the lead levels are exceeding the federal maximums by thousands of percentage points.
Such an important lesson, one that we need to make sure that we don't repeat again in terms of what's going on in Flint, Michigan. All right, Shari, thanks so much. Roxanne, back over to you.
All right, right after the break.